Dear viewers, dear friends, today I am once again concerned with the fate of Alexander Bittner, the sergeant who is currently incarcerated in the Aichach Correctional Facility because he did not take the corona injection and he did not want to pay the fine because he felt he was not in the wrong. When I received this letter last week, I hope you can see it, or you can also see that it is 1 millimeter font. I was shocked at first. I thought, what kind of letter is this? Where is it written to me and from whom? And when I read the letter in millimeter font, it is wonderful to see if you still have good eyesight. And when I then read it, I was shocked, and I also knew why there is a millimeter shank on this piece of paper, because he does not even have enough paper. So he has to manage his paperwork, and he wanted to tell me a lot of things, and he also asked that this be made public even if he might fear reprisals. I will therefore read this letter to you now, even if it is not entirely authentic, because I have a bit of a Saxon or Erzgebirge dialect, but you have certainly got used to it, and yet perhaps that is precisely why it is authentic. And I would like to read this letter to you now, in detail, because Alexander Bittner wanted to Thomas Dietz, Minister of the German Bundestag, Alexander Bittner, Justice Prison in Aichach. Dear Mr. Dietz, I received your letter of November 4th, over a week ago. Unfortunately, you confirm my suspicion. A member of parliament can go public, but without the various media, i.e. ARD, DTV, N24, etc. don't want to, the options are very limited. I would like to use the opportunity to write to you today, to use you to tell the public a few facts about the prison. There are, of course, official ways to point out grievances. You can write to the Bavarian Ministry of Justice, for example, but that's no use. Such a letter ends up here, officially for a statement, and here you write that everything is fine, and in the end, nothing changes. So what is really going on here? I definitely don't want to speak badly about the prison, because I am wrongfully imprisoned here. I am reporting neutrally and only facts, and completely ignoring the unjust imprisonment. What I am about to tell you will not be read anywhere, maybe later, because the incident with the Gablingen prison has now come to light, and yet I stand by every word I write here. In the 2 months that I have been here, I have seen cases of torture, mistreatment, and abuse of power by the prison. I myself am harassed to a minimal extent. I prefer to just mention the bigger things. The fact that officers stole my watch out of my cell, that I was offered special leave and then turned down, that I was offered open custody and then turned down, are just small things. The disciplinary measures that are handed out here and the type of punishment are no small matter. For example, you can receive disciplinary measures if you throw a bag of baking powder at another prisoner. However, you cannot file a motion for bias or appeal any kind of disciplinary action, regardless of what evidence the prisoner presents for his innocence. Yes, you read that correctly. Here you have to prove his innocence. The prisoner is always guilty. I know at least one person here who I know is innocent, and yet he was subjected to disciplinary action with severe punishment. In his case, I know all the details. I once didn't show up for work on a Friday afternoon, and I had reasons for it. For those 90 minutes, of which most people actually work 10 minutes on Fridays, I was punished with a 50% shopping ban. My next disciplinary measure, based on the fact that I didn't know that prisoners aren't allowed to send money to other prisoners, resulted in me being banned from shopping at all costs. So you're forced to work, but you get nothing for your work. I'm not counting the €2 per hour you get when you're released. Then a prison is no better than a concentration camp. This prison is also a place where there is no data protection or human dignity. All they need to do is put up a few signs saying, "Work sets you free." The food alone is torture and mistreatment. There is only lunch, no drinks. Officially, lunch is supposed to be dinner and breakfast for the next day. Like everyone else here, I can eat everything at once and still not feel full. If you can eat it at all, in 4 out of 7 cases, the so-called food is inedible. The medical care is catastrophic. If you need urgent treatment, you may only get an ibuprofen. I know of one where the doctor said, "Oh, that looks bad and needs urgent treatment." And then, in the very next sentence, "But we don't have time for that. Please do it after you're discharged." At least the patient was excused from work for 2 whole days. I know of one prisoner who was unable to remove a piece of glass from his right hand, so he continued to work in pain, even though it was getting worse. Many want to work because the alternative is that they are locked in their cell instead of working, which is psychological torture for most people here. And so everyone prefers physical torture to psychological torture. The most blatant case of torture, abuse of power and mistreatment is that of the prisoner Christian Wohlschlager. Born on October 14, 1977, he allowed me to go public because everything else is hopeless. The man has terminal cancer, and all of the officers in the middle ranks here in the building agree that he is a case for a suspension of sentence due to unfitness for prison. The food alone, which is not at all adapted to his illness, is slowly killing him. If 2 to 3 other prisoners weren't constantly providing him with additional food out of their own pockets, he would have been dead long ago, and I'm not exaggerating. His cancer has been on record since May, but it is immediately visible to anyone who isn't a doctor. Huge tumors on his biceps are impossible to miss. I personally convinced him of the need for medical records. But here, they do what they want. And so his official medical record, which is with the doctor, has simply disappeared. So again, no release, again, no treatment. He only has one last wish. He wants to visit his children before he dies. He still drags himself to work every day with a pained expression on his face because being locked up and alone is an even worse consequence for him. Last week he couldn't stand it and reported the prison doctor to the office for failing to provide assistance. An hour later, the whole prison knew, despite the data protection that officially exists here. The doctor then cut half of his medication to demonstrate her power. Since yesterday, there are suddenly no doctors in the building, and no one can reverse the withdrawal of medication. He is getting worse and worse. How do they come up with the idea of cutting off medication from a pain patient that he has been taking the whole time? Do they want him to die faster in order to destroy the evidence? For me, it is a clear case of abuse of power and mistreatment by the doctors here, together with the management of the institution. I was informed that all the doctors are on sick leave this week. I wanted to get the doctor to officially prescribe me additional food because I have already lost 7 kilos due to malnutrition. Today, Mr. Wohlschlager wrote another report. It said that it was very urgent and that the officials should fax it. The officials also know about his medication and that it is now missing, but they do nothing. He should please make his report through the official channel by post. Last week, he witnessed the hospital doctor shouting at a young official, "You have to be on our side." That's how it goes here. I never thought that something like this could happen in Germany. When it was reported on TV a month ago that torture of prisoners had been proven in the Gablingen prison, I was very surprised. Where is this place? Gablingen, I asked other prisoners, about 30 kilometers from here. Shortly after the TV report, there was a bang here too, and the prison director and the lawyer here were suddenly gone.
Kurz nach dem Fernsehbericht hat es auch hier gescheppert und die Anstaltsleiterin sowie die Juristin hier waren plötzlich weg.
So something isn't right here either, I thought.
Auch hier nicht.
The case of Christian Wohlschläger shows it clearly.
Fall von Christian
I know of a
Wohlschläger
few
macht
other
es so
cases,
deutlich.
but it's not as bad
Kenne
as
hier
Wohlschläger's.
einige andere Fälle, aber
I've
die
exchanged
Strafen beim
numbers with a
Wohlschläger
few
ist es
people
nicht.
here for possible
Aber hier
witness
mit
statements
einigen Nummern ausgetauscht,
after their
um
arrest.
eventuelle Zeugenaussagen
Most
nachzuweisen.
prisoners are afraid to write
Die
any
meisten
complaints
Häftlinge haben Angst,
while
in
in
der
prison
Haftzeit
for fear
irgendwelche
of
Beschwerden zu
consequences.
schreiben.
Otherwise,
Aus Angst vor
you will
Konsequenzen.
immediately be shown your power
Sonst
and
bekommt man
reminded
hier sofort
that you are
Macht
nothing
demonstriert
without
und
human
man wird
dignity.
erinnert, dass man ein Nichts ohne Menschenwürde ist. Habe mir
I
die
wrote down the
Machtdemonstration
demonstration of
aufgeschrieben.
power. Of course, they have tried to demonstrate their power to me too, but they have come to the wrong place. Because if I were a coward, I would have paid the probation conditions and wouldn't be here at all. I still have 2 to 4 months left in here. I will report on any other grievances that I discover. Kind regards, Alexander Bittner. Mr. Dietz says here, so when I read the lines here, and I read letter by letter, there are sometimes grammatical errors in them. I have read this letter authentically, as far as I could. This letter should also be made public in the interests of Sergeant Alexander Bittner. I have therefore chosen to read it out loud, because it will be difficult for many to read such a long letter, and I think it is the best way of disseminating it.
Ich denke, das ist die beste Form der Weiterverbreitung, die wir hier innerhalb kürzester Zeit machen können.
This is about human rights, and it is about violations of human rights in our prisons in Bavaria, Germany. I am always appalled at what is possible under Prime Minister Markus Söder. That is why I asked the media and the press to check this information. I have read out authentically what Alexander Bittner wrote to me in this letter. Thank you.
Und lasst euch Informationen geben. Überprüft das. Ich habe das authentisch vorgelesen, was Alexander Bittner mir geschrieben hat in diesem Brief. Danke.